Hello everyone, welcome to the second virtual government career fair sponsored by NISS, the National Institute of Statistical Sciences. I am Esra Kurum from the Department of Statistics at University of California, Riverside, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. In today's career fair, we'll feature 3 expert statisticians from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Food and Drug Administration, and finally, the National Institutes of Health. Our panelists today will describe their career paths and talk about the research that statisticians in their institutes are involved in. Our schedule today shows that our agenda as we have Dr. Simone Gray from the CDC, Dr. Sylvia Collins from FDA, and our final speaker is Dr. Paul Albert from NIH. And each of our speakers will have 15 minutes for their presentations. At the end, we'll have some time for questions from the audience and the speakers. So let me briefly talk about our logistics. I would like to thank Jim Rosenberger and Glenn Johnson for being our hosts today. All of our attendees are Zoom only, but we encourage all of you to send questions through the Zoom window. In order to do that, you can just click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of the Zoom window and type your question and finally click enter. A few more remarks. When a speaker is sharing his or her screen, you can click on the dash button at the bottom, at the top of the videos for all in order to minimize the rest of the speakers. And once this session is completed, you will receive a brief survey to give us some feedback. And in advance, we'd like to thank you for that. And the link of the recording of this session, as well as the slide decks of the speakers, will be available on the NISS website, niss.org, within a day or so. So with that, I would like to stop sharing my screen and introduce our first speaker, Dr. Simone Gray, who is a senior statistician in the Epidemiology and Applied Research branch of the Division of Cancer Prevention and Control at CDC. At CDC, Dr. Gray works on a variety of projects related to surveillance, recurrence, and cancer survivorship. She works with epidemiologists, medical professionals, and other public health professionals to conduct research across the cancer spectrum from prevention to survivorship. Simone, now I'll turn the mic over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezra. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. As Ezra said, my name is Simone Gray, and I'll be talking about working at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. So I thought I'd start with a little bit about me. I've been at CDC for 8 years, and I currently work in the Division of Cancer Prevention and Control. My educational background is in mathematics and statistics. By training, I am a spatial statistician, so I like maps, and I try to put one in here for you. When I finished my PhD, I did a postdoc at the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, modeling air pollution exposure. I later transitioned from that fellowship into a position at CDC, and so now I'm in the Division of Cancer, where I primarily work with large population survey data on cancer-related issues, including cancer prevention and survivorship. So starting with a little history about CDC. CDC is approaching its 75th anniversary, which will fall in July of 2021. CDC was originally formed to stop malaria from spreading across the US, and 74 years later, its mission is now broader than malaria and includes health promotion and disease prevention. Fun fact about CDC is that it is the only federal agency headquartered outside of Washington, DC. CDC's mission has always been focused on public health. So one of the ways CDC tries to reduce disease and risk is by conducting scientific studies that use public health data and statistical methods. And so I'll talk a little bit about how we do that within our organization and some of the projects that I've worked on. So what exactly is CDC? This I hate the slide because it has all the acronyms, and we can spend an entire webinar just going over acronyms at federal agencies. But I wanted to give an overview of sort of the hierarchical structure of CDC. CDC is a center within the US Department of Health and Human Services. It is considered a federal agency, and I've listed some other federal agencies for you. It's made up of a variety of centers, offices, and divisions. So as I mentioned before, I work in the Division of Cancer Prevention and Control, and that is housed under the National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. So within DCPC, I specifically work in the epidemiology and applied research branch, and I sit on a team of about 6 scientists called the Behavioral and Applied Research Team. Current CDC activities. So when we are not in the news talking about coronavirus, Ebola, and Zika, we're also working on other important issues such as vaping illness, the opioid epidemic, and chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. So CDC incorporates just about everything that can and or does make you unhealthy and or healthy. So we were asked to basically answer 5 questions. And the first question was, what are the job opportunities for statisticians at CDC? I should say that we have someone on HR on the line who may have called in as a participant, but that is because I have no hiring authority, and I wanted to make sure that questions about hiring were answered by the appropriate person. To find out about job opportunities at CDC and in general for any other federal agency, your go-to place is www.usajobs.gov, and you can search by keyword. And so there are a variety of keywords that will pull up quantitative positions, which I've listed. And you can also narrow that search by agency and or location. So within the job descriptions that are posted for statisticians, I want to express that the educational requirements are usually very clear. So they will say something to the effect of, you need to have completed 24 semester credits in statistics, or 12 semester credits, undergraduate level credits in mathematics, or it will say if they want graduate level credits, what those are as well. So you usually don't have to ask questions in terms of, well, what do I need to qualify for a particular position? Other things like citizenship requirements will also be listed in that position. And at the very last bullet I have includes a link to some of the fellowship opportunities that we have at CDC for recent graduates. There's the ORISE Fellowship, the EIS officers, and there are a few others. I don't know too many details about these positions, but I encourage you, if you are interested in those, to go to the website and find out as much information as you can about them. They can typically be 2 to 5 years, and they're a good way to get your foot in the door into the agency. Okay, so the next question was, describe the range of skills statisticians need to succeed in your organization. So I don't think these skills are unique to being a statistician at CDC. I think part of your job anywhere is making sure that you keep your job. But for working in the government in general, I think the most important practice is to follow the rules. It is a government agency. The rules are really not guidelines. They're there for a reason, and not following the rules could at best get you fired, at worst land you in jail. And so when there are things that come up, like how you book your travel, so if you're told that you need to do that through a particular contracting company, then you have to do that through a particular contracting company. You may not be able to go on Delta and just buy the ticket you want. And so there are certain parameters within which you have to operate because you are considered a federal employee, and that is probably the most important part of your job if you want to keep your job. Being able to work as part of a team, I think also important for any position that you hold anywhere. Communication and documentation. I think it's really important to be able to explain complicated technical ideas to a non-technical audience. The work you do at CDC is meant in general for the public. And so your work needs to be able to show that. Meeting deadlines, again, any job. Writing, so when I said that your work is in theory for the general public, so you may be asked to publish a manuscript in a journal, or depending on your position, you may be asked to do a write-up that is just seen internally, but still your writing skills are definitely going to be important no matter where you sit. All right, the next question was, what is the career path for statisticians in your organization? I think at CDC, there are primarily two career paths for statisticians. One involves management and the other does not. Typically, there are more options on the management track. So you have opportunities to lead a team of maybe 6 to 8 people as a team lead. As a branch chief, you would be managing all of the teams within your branch, and there are usually 3 to 4 of those, so that could range anywhere from 20 to 40 people. Division director, so the higher up you go, the more people you manage and the more responsibility you have. The associate directors of science are usually responsible for the quality of science that comes out from within a particular division or office. On the technical track, you basically just get more senior in your level of technical expertise. And so you're climbing up just that one particular ladder as a technical statistician. Okay, so those were the first 3 questions. The last 2 questions, I thought the next question was, is your organization currently hiring statisticians? And I did a quick search yesterday and there was nothing listed for CDC, but that is probably because our priorities are currently focused on emergency response for coronavirus. So, the job postings can change basically every day. If you are on the job market, I encourage you to basically look every day and apply for anything that you are qualified for. The next question was, what advice would you give to students based on your experience? And I'm going to rephrase that question to highlight why I think CDC is a great place to work. Working in the government is not for everybody, so it would be up to you if, all of these things fit your skill set and your personality. I think if you're interested in statistics, public service, and public health, then CDC is a great place to work. There are opportunities to do details, which are considered temporary assignments, and there should be a G in that, but I added that this morning, in other divisions. And so you, for 60 days, 90 days, even 120 days, you can work somewhere else within the agency just to see if you'd like it, to see what other statisticians do in other areas of the organization. Typically, sometimes these temporary assignments lead to permanent positions, if that's something you're interested in. So people always talk about how easy it is to move around the agency, and that is true because you're already there. So you have the face time with some of the people that you could potentially be working with in the future. There are certain positions that allow you to travel. There are opportunities to deploy in emergency response situations, if that is something you're interested in. There are opportunities to work overseas, if that is something that you're interested in. And I know another thing that we talk in the government is that, the government has great benefits, and they do, including a pension, which is probably something that not all of you are thinking about right now, but one day you might. And there are very few organizations that still have a pension. So, if that's something that you're considering, you should really look at the benefits package in any position that you are potentially considering. Flexible work schedules is also important. You can start your workday typically at any time that's convenient for you within what we consider core hours. You can work 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. You can get every other Friday off. You can get every Friday off, depending on how you want to set up your work schedule. I, at one point, lived in Florida for a year and basically came to Atlanta once or twice every month. That, again, not something that happens across the board at CDC, but the opportunity is there. If it is something that you need or want, you can try to work it out. So with that said, I hope that this has piqued your interest in working for or with the CDC. This slide was put together earlier, so I'm not sure how up to date this information is, but as of this morning, I did check our ranking with best places to work, and we were #2. And I don't think we'll ever beat out NASA. NASA is listed as #1. So it's still considered a great place to work. And we do employee satisfaction and engagement surveys every year. And generally speaking, most people seem to like working here. So I'm giving you my unbiased opinion, or as much of it as I can based on data. And that's all I have for you guys. Please go to the CDC website if you would like more information on the coronavirus. That's it. Let me stop sharing. Ezra, do you need to come back?
No, I'm not going to start sharing anything. I'm just going to introduce our next speaker. And I'd like to thank you for your talk, especially actually pointing out things that maybe new graduates would not think about, such as pension and work conditions. I think I agree. Like when I was looking for a job, they weren't in my mind, but I'm glad you pointed out. So, because those are things that people should also pay attention to, I think. Thank you so much. So I am going to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sylvia Collins. Dr. Collins received her PhD in statistics from Boston University. Currently, she is responsible for all aspects of statistical review of irregularity applications for new drugs, therapeutic biologics, and generic drugs. And she's the director of Office of Biostatistics at FDA, as I said. And then when she joined the FDA in August 2019, she has more than 30 years of drug development and biostatistics leadership experience. Prior to joining the FDA, she was the vice president of biometrics at Acadia Pharmaceuticals. She has pioneered the large-scale deployment of electronic data capture at multiple companies such as Bayer and Novartis. With that, I would like to turn the floor to Sylvia. But I want to also say that don't worry if you couldn't get the email addresses or see the whole slide. The slides will be available on the NISS website within a day or so. So we apologize for the technical difficulties, but you know, it happens when we're in different locations. So, but don't worry, I want to say to our attendees, the slides will be available within a day or so at the NISS website. And I would also like to encourage our attendees to submit questions if they have any, using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom window. With that, I would like to introduce our last speaker, Dr. Paul Albert. Dr. Albert is a senior investigator and chief of the biostatistics branch in the Division of Cancer Epidemiology and Genetics at the National Cancer Institute. He has had a nearly 30-year career at the NIH, serving in 4 institutes in positions with increasing responsibility. He's also an associate editor of the leading biostatistics journals, including Statistics in Medicine and Biometrics. Also, he's a fellow of the American Statistical Association. His methodological research interests are in analysis of longitudinal data, biomarker data, and diagnostic testing. He has over 350 papers in leading statistics, medical, and epidemiological journals. With that, I would like to give the floor to Paul. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Well, do you hear me?
Yes, we do hear you.
Somehow my picture's up, but that's okay. So start video, maybe it'll, let me just see if this works. Here we go. All right. So thank you for the invitation to talk today, and I'm happy to talk about NIH and particularly the National Cancer Institute, where I am now. And I have a pretty good understanding of most of the parts of NIH since I've been in many of the statistics group over my almost 32 years at the NIH. I came right after finishing my PhD. I don't know how it's possible, but I'm only 40 and how I could possibly be for 32 years. But I was very young when I got my PhD. So just a little bit about the National Institutes of Health. There are 27 institutes. The largest, and it's really by disease, usually by disease area or organ of the body. There are institutes like the National Cancer Institute, which is the largest. NIAID, the Allergy and Infectious Disease, which is in the news quite a bit now with Dr. Tony Fauci as their director. And then there's the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute. That's only 3 of them. Those are the largest ones. And there are biostatistics groups in many of the institutes, but primarily the biggest ones are in the 3 biggest institutes. But there are other ones. There's a biostatistics group in the National Institutes of Child Health, where I led that group for 7 years before, and the National Institute of Environmental Health down in North Carolina, and they have a very strong biostatistics program there. At the National Cancer Institute, again, one of the institutes of NIH, there are 5 biostatistics groups, and they're in areas of cancer prevention, cancer surveillance, and cancer treatment and diagnosis. And then there's our group, which is a branch in the Division of Cancer Epidemiology and Genetics. I want to point out that one of the biggest special things about the NIH, which people don't tend to know from the outside, is we separate our programs in terms of intramural and versus or extramural research programs. And all our biostatistics and statistical groups fall in either the intramural or the extramural. If you're in the extramural, it's a system more like you review protocols, you're dealing with serving on data safety monitoring boards, you're a representative of the institute, and as such, you support the community, the extramural community, the outside, the university community where NIH gives money to. The intramural is smaller. About 20% of NIH staff are in the intramural, and that's like the university within NIH. So we're very much like a university. As such, we have faculty, and they go through a tenure process similar to what you would find in many of the universities you're at now. So extramural groups support the research outside, while intramural groups, and there are a few of those, biostatistics group, investigators there conduct independent initiated research programs. So they basically work on developing new methodological research and collaboration, and really that comes organically from the individual or from a group that the individual starts. Very much like a tenure track and tenured professor at many biostatistics or statistics, more biostatistics, but also statistics programs. A little about my career. I've been both I'm probably unique in this way. I've been both in intramural and extramural programs. I finished Johns Hopkins in 1988, getting my PhD there, and thought I would spend a couple of years at NIH before going to the university. So I came and there I am almost 32 years later and still at NIH, because it's a very exciting place and you can get very diverse experiences in different places. So I started in the Neurology Institute and worked on very interesting questions in epilepsy and multiple sclerosis modeling, and then moved on to the Office of Biostatistics Research at the Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, where they specialize in the design and analysis of very large phase 3 clinical trials. After spending some years there, and all of these positions have been sort of promotions as I moved along, I moved to the NCI, the National Cancer Institute, in the Division of Cancer Treatment and Diagnosis, which also deals with with a large battery of clinical trials, but also diagnostic studies. And then a branch chief position opened in the intramural program in the Child Health and Human Development Institute, where I moved in 2000, this should be 2009 actually, but 2009, and served there until 2017. At that point, although I was fairly senior, I had to go through an NIH tenure, which is similar to what tenure is at a university, and had to have letters sent. And this is all done, a panel. There's an NIH central tenure committee, and to become a senior investigator. And then a couple of years back, a position, I competed for a position in the, at NCI in the Division of Cancer Epidemiology and Genetics group, where I now lead that group and also serve as a senior investigator within that program. So in terms of job opportunities at NIH, I sort of describe a little bit about the typical job possibilities in the different programs. Usually in the extramural program, people are hired similar to, I think, how they're done at FDA and CDC as mathematical statisticians. Usually they have a PhD in statistics or biostatistics. There are exceptions, but generally a US citizen requirements. Many of the positions are civil service positions, meaning GS positions, where you come in and then you have a trial period, but after that you have civil service protection, and you have your job for a long period of time, and you get evaluated, but there's security in those positions. Now, for more senior positions, there are what are called Title 42 positions. I know FDA has that. I think also CDC has these positions. And there's the ability at that level to get higher salaries, but you lose some civil service protection in those kind of positions. And then some of the biostatistics branches in some institutes have contractor positions for non-citizens, where once they become a citizen, they're then quote unquote converted to a mathematical statistician. In the intramural system, it is much different. We hire people very similar in a way to a university. So we have postdoctoral fellowship programs. My group we have currently 12 postdoctoral fellows from all over the country, from many graduate schools all over the United States. We have pre-doctor students who come here and they do their dissertations in our division. And they work on our very unique data sets, and they work jointly often with the faculty at the university and our faculty, and they're supported generally by us. And then for those undergraduates who want to take a few years off, we often hire, we have 3 now, we have 2 coming, where they spend a year or 2 between undergraduate and graduate school getting real experience in biostatistics. And often actually published. We have one who just submitted a paper to JRSSA with us. So it's a really great experience. We hire generally the more permanent, and they're not permanent, but positions are investigator tenure track and senior investigator tenured. They're hired through, like a university, through a search committee, and we have a current opening now. They send the position. If you usually you have a postdoc first for an investigator position, you apply for that and you come up, and then a search committee meets, and it's done that way, not through USA Jobs. And so US citizenship is not required for any of these positions, including our fellowships. Except I think the post-bac and the pre-doc, generally I think they have. It's difficult if they're not US citizens, but for the postdoc, most of our postdocs are foreign nationals. And many of our investigators come in and they are not US citizens. More on the mathematical statisticians in the extramural. There are groups couple of groups at NCI, NIAID led by Dean Folman, NHLBI led by Nancy Geller, and their roles are basically to support the research programs at the at the Institute. Methodological, many of the people in those groups, many of the staff and faculty there do a lot of methodological research, but it is not usually, it's not required. So your permanency doesn't really depend on it, but many of them do really world-class research careers. Duties generally include representing the Institute on steering committees and DSMB, supporting large clinical trials, protocol review, and statistical consulting throughout the division. Again, there are opportunities for innovative new methodological development. And they occasionally have the opportunity to mentor students, but it's not actually a part of their mission. In the intramural program, there are groups at NCI, my former group, NICHD, and NIEHS, Environmental Health, down in North Carolina. Investigators generally need a postdoc or equivalent to get hired. It's similar to a biostatistics department at university. You come in as a tenure track, you spend a number of years before you come up for tenure to a senior investigator, and you're evaluated on your methodological and collaborative research programs, your mentorship, you know, how you mentor fellows, and your service to societies, very much like a university. And you need to develop an independent initiated research program. So it'd be very exciting for the right person. And tenure really emphasizes developing new statistical methods, publishing in the leading journals, but also contributing to the mission of the Institute. So, you know, if you publish, 12 annals papers in statistics, it's not necessarily the greatest thing, although in a statistics department, that would get you tenure in a great way. At NIH, they'd wonder why you wanted to stay at NIH. So it's really contributions relevant to the mission of the Institute. And people spend usually 8 years on tenure track before becoming a senior investigator. There's advantages to both intramural and extramural. The advantage for intramural is you have resources. So you can hire fellows, you can initiate a study or a data collection, you have computational support. You basically as you come with a position, you come with a package with resources, with money. So just a little pitch for our group, hiring of statisticians at NIH. DCEG, my group, is hiring. We have an senior investigator position open. We have applicants now, but if anyone wanted to send their application, they could. Usually they have a postdoctoral fellow first. But we also have postdoctoral fellows. So for people wanting to spend a few years at NIH, not sure where they want to go afterwards, maybe academics, maybe government, maybe industry, it's a great opportunity. Here's a list of postdoctoral fellows and where they have come from, what universities, and you could see a wide range of universities. Our postdoctoral fellowships are 100% research positions. They actually pay fairly high for postdoctoral fellows, 60s to low 70s. You have a lot of flexibility on what you can work on, and there's a community. Our group has 10 postdocs with over 100 postdocs within our division. So it's a real community. We have people to help with career development and all kinds of cool things. US citizenship is not required, and we hire on OPT or J1. Most people for our foreign nationals come on an extended OPT. We also hire pre-doctoral fellows for those people finishing a thesis and want to spend a couple of years finishing their work and working with us. And for anyone here who is not yet in graduate school, we have postdoctoral fellowships right out of college. So that's our place. That's NIH in general. And I just want to talk a little bit about recommendations in a general way to students about their first job. These are personal ones, and they're not really targeted at NIH or NCI. It's just sort of philosophical views. So my view, and I have a son who's 27, and this is what I tell him: take risks, don't play it safe. So my feeling is it's a time in your life where you want to not worry about safety. We're in a field where you can always get a job, and you want to try high risk things that may not work out or just expand your horizon. And you want to just get a great experience. Any experience you get as you're developing your career even if you don't stay there, builds for your future. So that's kind of my view. Don't take a position for the money. Money will come. So my feeling is, you know, if you go to a company and they offer you $300,000, $200,000, that's great. That's fabulous. But in the long run, what matters is your experience, because you have a 40 years career to develop. So I wouldn't be looking and saying, okay, this one offers 10,000 more, I'm going to take it. My view. Ideal job provides flexibility and some freedom. So you want a place that is flexible, so you can change your ideas a little bit. Like you may come and not know what you're so interested in, and then you can move around a little bit in terms of what you work on, and you have freedom, meaning that, you know, you have some time where you can do methodological research, or maybe you don't do methodological research, but you can sort of develop yourself in ways that will make you more marketable as you progress in your field. Look for a place that will broaden your horizon, especially if you're just finishing graduate school. You're probably not going to do just what your thesis is doing. That's good. Get other experiences. Even if you go into academics, it's good to have more than one area and get that experience. And then you probably won't spend your whole career in one place. You're going to go around, and especially young people now. Everything's changing. People don't spend their time. Even universities probably that won't be true in 30 years. Realize that. So it's not the first job isn't the only job you're going to have. So that's how I think about when I take those positions. And that's my talk. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much, Paul. It was a very enlightening talk, and I appreciate all the advice you gave at the end, especially moving and changing jobs along your career. I think people should be flexible and know that they could just move from one place to another if there will be a need. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
There's one question to you, and then there's another question that I'm going to ask all of our speakers. But why is citizenship required for extramural but not intramural jobs? I don't know whether you have any information on that.
So, you know, the reason why I'm not quite sure, you know, at NIH, most U.S. government jobs, and the people in other agencies, CDC and FDA, can talk about that, but most of the jobs are civil service. They require citizenship. For not sure the reason, but the intramural program, which is a small component, never had that rule. So they wanted to attract, so the idea was, so intramural scientists, forget statisticians, the intramural scientists, many of them are lab scientists, they come from all over the world. So the idea is to bring in the most talented people wherever they're from. So as a result, they've I guess it's a negotiation with the agency to basically say, no, you know, there's no U.S., you don't have to have a citizenship requirement. And even for promotion, even to a branch chief, there have been many branch chiefs who never become a U.S. citizen. And that has been okay. But why more than that, I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much, at least for giving us your insight. There's another question we got from our attendees. She's asking, how far in advance should students apply for government jobs prior to graduation? Simone gave some answer on the Q&A, but I want to ask whether our attendees would like to say something about that. How far in advance should students apply for government jobs prior to graduation? Sylvia, Paul, would you like to say something?
I would say many months. It's a very slow process. It takes several months. So I would apply at least 6 months before graduation. There's a lot of steps that they have to submit, packages, transcripts, security checks, fingerprinting, and all types of security clearance processes.
So our postdoctoral positions, generally we hire, there isn't those requirements. We don't do, so where the problem with the time is if you're a foreign national, you have to go through our Division of International Services and get a visa and have your OPT changed over to one that would work at NIH. That takes usually 3 months. So generally what we do is we look for fellows, like we're looking for fellows for next year. So, but if you come May, then you know, and if we have an opening, it's going to take 3 or 4 months to get you here if you're selected. If you're a foreign national, if you're a U.S. citizen, it could be much quicker.
Okay, thank you. And Paul, I think this question is for you. How to apply to DCEG at the NIH?
So if you're interested in DCEG, we just put an ad in the Florida site, the Florida site for a postdoc, or we have a couple of postdocs open. You can also go to our website. There is a place where you can then apply through, I'm not sure it's through that, but they'll give you the information, or you feel free to send me an email and I can then send it off or something. So just feel free to look my name up and just go on and then send it to me.
Ah, great. All right. Thank you. And before our time is up, I would like to ask a question that I get usually from my students. That, as you know, as statisticians, we have a quite variety of choices. We could go to academia, government, or industry, and even we need to decide what career path, what field they should go. So what advice do you have? And when you were thinking at the beginning of your career, how do you think they should decide what career path or what field they should go to?
So this is Simone, and I'll talk personally about my experience. I, thought about academia, I thought about industry, and I think I interviewed across the board. So I think you need to look at what each industry values and sort of line that up against what you value. In terms of academia, do you value publishing? That's very important in a research institution. It's going to be really hard to be successful if that's not what you're into. In terms of, industry versus government, for me personally, I wanted to be involved in policy and decision making. And so I felt like the best place for me was to do that in the government. So again, it really depends on what your interests and priorities are.
Thank you. Paul and Sylvia.
And I would totally agree with Simone. I think that one thing nice about being statisticians is that there's so many opportunities for us, and not just your first job, but other jobs. So you want to find your passion, and the only thing I would say is when you look for a place, find the place that you have the sense of a flexible place, in what flexible means to you. We're all different, but you want a place where you can kind of grow, and they're open to new ways of thinking, and that's of course, CDC, FDA, NIH. But if you go other places, I would really think about that. Make sure it's a place where in 2 years from now, if you're looking for another job, you've really gained a unique experience.
Great, thank you. Sylvia, do you have anything to add that you would like to say?
Well, I think I agree with everything that was said. I think it's a personal choice. You have to really determine what your passion is. There are many, many opportunities in many different applications of statistics. And there are factors, including salary versus public service versus other factors. So I've never regretted to choose pharmaceutical development, and a very interesting field, but it really depends. Some people may prefer sports statistics or some other area. It's a personal choice.
Thank you all. I think that was a great highlight. I know we're just about out of time, but there is one more question came from Q&A. I would like to ask you guys that one as well. how to build your skills before starting internships or a real life job?
Well, I would say, I would say be a good student, learn as much as you can, always question, professors, and really think about don't just follow, question. I did more of that as a graduate student. I look back and I feel like I just sat there and got information, but I didn't have sort of the energy I have now in that way then, because I didn't know then stuff, how important it was. So I would do that. And then also I would say, don't hesitate, get the internship requirement. We also, just like FDA, we have a summer program, and I could tell you, we get so many applicants from high school students. Now, we don't usually take them because but they're so ambitious, and they really say, I can come, I can do all these things. And that is the spirit you should have. So what I would say to the person who asked that question is, if you're asking the question, you're ready to get an internship right now.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think the whole point of an internship is to gain experience. So as long as you're open to learning and, learning more about the organization, learning more about people, and learning more about the skills that you may not have that you need, for the next position, I think you'll be fine. I also think it's important for students to understand that even though you have, whether it's an advanced degree or a graduate degree, no one expects you to know everything when you walk into the door. Or maybe some companies do, but in general, they don't. And so there is a little bit of a learning curve that just about anybody coming in would have to get over. And usually most places are okay with that. So you've learned the foundational stuff, but there's some specific stuff that you may only get with being on the job, working with this particular data set in this particular setting with this particular disease, and you'll figure it out. You've got the skills and you will figure it out.
So and the
summer internship.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go, sorry.
The summer internship program we have is actually a training program, and the students really appreciate that, working with a mentor who will guide you in learning the processes, working for a government, the rules, and many other training opportunities that our offices provide, in whether it's technical area or processes as well. So it's a great learning opportunities for everybody. And you don't learn, and a lot of the work we do, you don't usually study in your PhD program. You learn a lot of it with hands-on experience and applying your skills into real-world problems.
And I wanted to second Simone's view about a discussion about, not knowing, not expecting, how much you expected to know. When we hire postdocs, I could tell you the first month or two, I have to kind of relax them and say, ask any question. No one evaluates you because people are nervous. Oh, I don't know this, I don't know that. Or when we start to talk, they don't know half the things that our group is saying to them. And it takes them a while to be able to say, I don't understand what you're saying. And to learn, that's the first step in learning. So I guarantee you, when you go to a new place, especially if you're, just got a graduate school, you're not going to know a lot of it. You're going to have that feeling. And you also want to search for a place that you feel comfortable, that you could say, I don't know that, the people in that place will explain it to you. If you're in a place where they expect you to know everything, that may not be the greatest opportunity for a junior person.
I think that's great advice. Thank you all so much. And I would like to thank all of you to giving insight to your organizations and telling us what statisticians do, and also giving us all these websites and emails for looking for a job for the new graduate students and undergraduates looking for jobs. Thank you so much. We're just about out of time, so I'd like to again thank all of our speakers. I would also like to thank our attendees for joining in and asking questions. Following this meetup, our attendees will be receiving an email to give us some feedback. So we would appreciate your comments on this webinar, and your answers will also help us to organize new webinars and career fairs. And I would also like to highlight that the slides that our speakers shared will also be available on NISS website, so you can also obtain the emails and information through those. Finally, I hope that all of our attendees will be participating in the upcoming NISS events. So have a great day. Thank you all for joining.